Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale Arceus video, where today I'm going to be completing the game with Poochyena. Now, I have done this challenge in the past, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get past Eldes. However, it has been a very long time since then, and as the 2-year anniversary video, I think it's time to give Poochyena the redemption it actually deserves. So right now, it is the only Pokemon in the F tier because it's the only Pokemon that I haven't been able to complete the game with. So with that, let's go ahead and look over its stats and move pool. To start with, it has 35 HP, 55 attack, 35 defense, 30 special attack, 30 special defense, and 35 speed, making it incredibly frail and also very slow. Luckily, it does have a decent attack stat at 55, but unfortunately the Dark type is a special attacking type, so unfortunately I won't be able to use its stab moves as effectively, but it does get access to Body Slam, Double Edge, Iron Tail, and Shadow Ball. On top of that, whenever it is purified, it gets Heal Bell, Dig, Poison Fang, and Howl, so it does get quite a few options. However, this was all not enough in the previous attempt. What I really need is a specific hidden power type, that being Hidden Power Rock. So the very beginning of this run starts with just trying to catch the right Poochyena. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of factors out of my control here because hidden power types are based on IVs, and while I could go in and alter them, I kind of want to have an authentic Poochyena. At the same time, I also need to scrutinize each of the Poochyena to make sure that I have one with a decent base power. Because on Poochyena number 26, while it does have Rock, it's only 34 base power, which is just way too weak. So it isn't until the 29th that I actually decide to keep the Poochyena that has 49 base power, which isn't the strongest, but hopefully it's strong enough. With that being said, we now move on to the game, and I run into another Poochyena. Hello, other Poochyena. Goodbye, other Poochyena. Something I haven't mentioned so far is that we are actually playing as a Shadow Poochyena right now because unfortunately the Purification Stone is after the Agate Village Gauntlet, so I will have to defeat the old man before I can get to it. Now there are a few downsides that come with this, the first being that I am stuck at level 10, and the second being that I am in reverse mode, so at the end of every turn I take a little bit of damage. Now the thing is that I normally wouldn't be in reverse mode at this point, however I was doing some testing for something completely off topic from this video, which involved a lot of walking around and that caused the gauge to lower, and the lower your gauge is, the more often you go into reverse mode. Speaking of off topic, I was actually wanting to say a lot about this battle, and unfortunately I've already wasted the first attempt talking about the other side. Anyway, basically this battle is all up to luck. The preferred strategy is Abra hits me, takes me down below half, and then Horsey hits me, taking me down to near zero. That way I get the most out of my Citrus Berry, which heals 30 HP, and then I can use that extra health to finish off the Horsey and start taking down the Shroomish. And even though I can get to Shroomish pretty consistently, my health is usually too low for me to survive any hits. Speaking of, I actually had 2 tackle misses, and so I'm able to get by on attempt number 14. But we're not out of the woods yet, because I go into the battle against Egan right after, and he has a Pikachu with Thunderbolt. It does a ton of damage, taking me down to 1 HP, but I'm able to heal up with Citrus Berry. However, there's always that chance that I get paralyzed because of its static ability, or I just get bad ranges. That first attempt really looked like it was a 2-shot, but it wasn't, and on this one, it's still in green, but it gets taken down. So it's all just up to luck. This took a few more attempts, but finally we purify our Poochyena, and during the process I get the move Bite, which I decide to teach over Heal Bell. Now to finally move on to our Poochyena's nature, which is Lax, raising its defense but lowering its special defense. It might not be the best nature it could have had, though it will definitely help against some of the stronger physical threats. And hopefully it should be able to take out the legendary birds before it's an issue. And it gets the runaway ability, which is completely useless. Now with a purified Poochyena in hand, it's time to go ahead and move on to the Power Rangers, where today I decide to fight Green because I have super effective damage with Poison Fang. So with that, let's go ahead and begin a little bit of rambling. If you are enjoying this video so far, consider liking, and if you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. Now, it has been a very long time since I've uploaded. Very sorry about that. I did put out a comment on the previous video, though I'm not sure how many people actually saw that. But I haven't had internet since that video released. I believe it was that night it went out, and it just got turned back on a couple days ago. However, it's not all bad, because in the meantime, I've been doing a lot of runs, doing some that I knew were going to take a long time, such as this one, as well as some themed runs like Easter, which unfortunately I did miss, but I do have a run finished for it, which will probably come out right after this one. With that being said, unfortunately we do lose against green, so I go to Mount Battle to do some training, and I run into another Poochyena. Hello there, other Poochyena. Goodbye, other Poochyena. Upon returning, I decide to go against brown this time because I have super effective damage against his ball toy, and Hoot Hoot really shouldn't hurt me too bad. It misses on the first turn, I do half to ball toy, it hits another Shadow Blitz taking me down below half, and Bite finishes it off, and that just leaves the Hoot Hoot, which really doesn't do that much damage to me, so after a few turns I'm able to take it down and enter the Cipher base. Now inside, I run into a Carvana who is holding the Black Glasses item, raising dark type damage by 10%, which should help Bite do a little more damage. And then I go into the battle against Lavrina. She leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly, and right away I go for Bite into the Beautifly, hoping to take it down in a single hit. Though unfortunately it does survive at low yellow, so it is going to take another hit to finish off. And unfortunately, I'm slower than both of her Pokemon, which is definitely going to be a bit of a problem because Roselia is definitely faster than me, such a Leech Seed. But luckily, Bite crits, and so I'm able to take it down in a single hit, and then she sends out her final Pokemon, a Shadow Delcatty. And unfortunately, my health is already very low, so Love Disc finishes me off. So I decide to go ahead and do some extra training over at Mount Battle, and at level 33, I get the move Takedown, which I decide to teach over Howl. And then I go into the battle against Lavrina once again. Now with this new move in tow, I'm hopefully going to be able to take down some Pokemon that I couldn't before. Now at level 33, I do outspeed the Beautifly, and then out comes Roselia, which I also outspeed. Takedown does take it down in a single hit, and then out comes Delcatty once again. Though unfortunately, I'm still taken down pretty easily by Shadow Wave. So I go back to Mount Battle once again. I run into a Mightyena. Hello there, Mightyena. Goodbye, Mightyena. Now at level 40, I'm just on the cusp of getting a new move, that being Crunch, which I'm going to teach over Poison Fang, and that will really help my damage. Now, a little challenge I had tried to set up for myself was trying to beat certain bosses at a lower level than I had done in the first attempt with Poochyena, and unfortunately, Lavrina was beaten at 41 in the old one, and it's beaten once again at level 41 here, though I did do it about 15 minutes faster. Now, of course, you can't have a 2-year anniversary video without the obligatory Mirror-Bee. How has your day been today, Mirror-Bee? That sounds splendid. Anyway, now moving on to the real game tower, I go pick up my 250 items, Hidden Power and Protect. Now, luckily, I already know exactly what Hidden Power type this is, so I don't have to waste any time figuring that out. But I do run into another Mightyena. Hello, other Mightyena. Goodbye, other Mightyena. Now, at the Finac Pokemart, you can actually get access to all the vitamins, and usually I don't end up showing this because usually I just buy whatever the stronger attacking type of the Pokemon is, either protein or calcium. But the thing is that I recall in the first video that I was slower than a lot of things. So I'm actually going to grab a few Carbos to raise my speed, hoping to outspeed the threats later in the game, but if I don't end up doing that, it is going to be a bit of a waste. But anyway, I decide to do some extra training against all the other trainers in town, and I run into another Mightyena. Goodbye, the Mightyena, and then I go into the battle against Snattle. He leads with a Quagsire and a Lantern, and I go for Dig, which doesn't quite finish off Lantern, which is a bit unfortunate. Shockwave really isn't doing that much damage to me, and neither is Rock Tomb. Though now with my speed dropped, I am slower than Lantern. I finish it off with a Bite, and then out comes Lunatone. Now, I do think that Crunch should be able to take it down, but unfortunately from 35 HP, it does see a KO. So it finishes me off, so I go ahead and do a little bit of extra training, get up to level 51, and now on the third attempt, I'm able to take down Lantern in a single dig. And unfortunately, my speed being lower does make me slower than the Lunatone, though it does always set up Shadow Sky on the first turn unless it sees the KO. Then out comes Castform, which is going to be faster than me after 2, goes for Weather Ball, doing less damage than I expected. Crunch finishes it off, and then out comes his final Pokemon, which is Matang. Now Matang should hopefully be a one-shot with Dig, though we will have to wait and see, because it does take a full turn to do, and the Fruity Pebbles are coming down. Dig hits, takes it down, and then all that's left is the Quagsire, which has already taken a bit of chip damage, so hopefully Crunch should be able to take it down in a single hit, which it does, and we beat Snattle. So now moving on, right before the next battle, I decide to go ahead and teach Protect over Takedown. Now moving on to the battle against Gonzep, he leads with an Electrode and a Nuzleaf, and this is the second attempt because the first attempt was an immediate takedown. So I go for Dig, taking down the Electrode in a single hit, though unfortunately because it does have the static ability, it is a 30% chance that I get paralyzed. I go for Crunch into the Vileplume, hoping to take it down in a single hit, but unfortunately it only takes it down to low yellow. Though luckily it did just decide to go for Hyper Beam, so I finish it off while it's recharging. Then out comes Whiscash. Whiscash is absolutely going to survive at least one crunch because of how tanky it is, and Nuzleaf finishes me off. So I think that the answer is very obvious here. I just need to not get paralyzed on the first move. So I go for Dig once again. Luckily the Spark doesn't paralyze me, and neither does Static, so I'm able to get past Electrode, and then out comes Vileplume. Now with an actual speed advantage, I can go for Bite, hoping for a flinch, which I get. And just to play it safe, I'm going to go for Protect here, and then I can finish off Vileplume on the following turn. Then he sends out Whiscash, and Whiscash is going to follow a very similar approach as Vileplume. I'm going to go for Bite, hoping for a flinch, because I know for a fact I won't be able to one-shot it, and then I can go for Protect and then finish it off. Now, something I'm starting to notice is that for a lot of these fights, whenever I use Protect, I always play it a little too safe. I mean, there's no way Nuzleaf could realistically take me down, and Skarmory, while it is going to take a few turns, it doesn't really do much damage either. I mean, its Hyper Beam doesn't even do a quarter to me, so by the time it attacks again, I'm going to heal off just about all that damage. Luckily in this attempt I realized that, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time going for Protect. I finish off the Skarmory, and then all that's left is a Nuzleaf. And even though I don't have any effective moves against it, Crunch nearly takes it down in a single hit. So I finish it off, and we beat Gonzep on the 4th attempt. So with that, we move on, and I run into another Mightyena. Hello there, other Mightyena. Goodbye, other Mightyena. I take a slight detour to go pick up Body Slam from the move tutor. Unfortunately, to get Body Slam, I do need to get rid of a move, and I decide that to be Bite, which isn't great, but I go into the battle against Scorrigan. He leads with Lairon and a Celio. I go for Body Slam and Celio, and unfortunately it's not a one-shot, though I do get a paralysis. And so I go for Protect this turn to heal up the little bit of damage I took from Earthquake, and then I finish off the Celio with another Body Slam, and then he sends out Slowking. Now, Slowking shouldn't be a threat. I think Crunch should take it down in a single hit. Of course, I have to Protect this turn to not get hit by Lairon. But then I go for Crunch, and it is a one-shot, and then he sends out his next Pokemon, Ursaring. I go for Crunch into it, which unfortunately it's not a one-shot. It hits a Brick Break, nearly doing half my health, and Iron Tail takes me down very low, and I get a defense drop as well. I go for Protect to heal up just a tad, and go for Crunch to finish off the Ursaring. He then sends out Shadow Primeape. Now, unfortunately, my only move that can deal decent damage to it is Body Slam, and at this point there's no real way for me to take it down. Plus, I'm slower than it. So I go ahead and defeat the rest of the trainers in the pyramid, and I come back at level 67, and I go for Body Slam, which still isn't a one-shot against Celio, though it is doing a little bit less damage with Earthquake now. I go for another Body Slam to finish it off, and then he sends out the Slowking just as before. And I know for a fact Slowking is a one-shot, so it's not really a threat here either. And then he sends out the Ursaring. Now, I'm really hoping that these few levels that I just got should be enough to either take it out or just take less damage from the Brick Break. But it's still doing a ton of damage, and Iron Tail gets another defense drop. So, unfortunately, I'm in the exact position as before. I decide to go for Dig, that way I can get 2 heals for free, and also take down the Lairon, but as it turns out, Lairon is actually intelligent and goes for Protect the turn I would have come up for Dig. So, unfortunately, I get hit with a Brick Break, and Iron Tail finishes me off. So, with that second defeat, I decide to go ahead and do a little bit of extra training, and on the way, I run into another Mightyena. Hello, the Mightyena. Goodbye, other Mightyena. And finally, now at level 77, on attempt number 10, I go back into the battle again. Celio is now a one-shot. Slowking is exactly the same as it was before, because it goes down to Crunch in a single hit. But then he sends out Ursaring, and now with 10 levels higher, I'm able to take it down with a single Crunch. But then that leaves the actual biggest threat of this battle, and that is Primeape. Unfortunately, Body Slam up until this point has not been a one-shot, but finally it does take it down in a single hit, so Primeape goes down, and then he brings out Hypno, which is not a threat whatsoever, and Lairon, as long as it doesn't Protect, should go down to Dig. Now, interestingly, in the first Poochyena video, I'm pretty sure I was able to eventually outspeed the Primeape, but unfortunately in this one, even with the extra Carbos, I wasn't able to do it. So that could just be a plus speed nature, or it could just be that my IVs or EVs were worse. Anyway, with that being said, we now move on to the final area of the game, where Poochyena was completely stopped last time, so hopefully we'll be able to get past some of the bigger threats. Starting with Lavrina, she leads with a Gardevoir and a Gorbis, and I go for Crunch into Gorbis right away because it has a much lower special defense stat. Then out comes Roselia, and Gardevoir goes for Ice Punch. Luckily it doesn't freeze me, but just to be sure it doesn't, I go ahead and take it down. Then out comes Farfetch'd, which is her first Shadow Pokemon. Roselia sets up Leech Seed, but honestly it's not really doing that much damage. Crunch takes down the Farfetch'd, and then out comes her final Pokemon, a Shadow Altaria. Roselia swaps over to Magical Leaf, gets a crit, dealing quite a bit more damage, and that Leech Seed takes me down to half, so I decide to take it down. That just leaves behind the Altaria, which is doing about 50 health. I go for Protect, get up to 65, go for Crunch, which takes it down to low yellow, and it gets a crit and finishes me off. Okay, well that's very unfortunate. Go back into the battle again, basically everything went exactly the same, and I go for Crunch, takes me down to low health, and then I finish it off with a second Crunch. Pretty easy second attempt. Moving on through the volcano, and I run into another Mightyena. Hello, other Mightyena. Goodbye, other Mightyena. Now at the top of the volcano, I run into Snaddle once again. He leads with a Quagsire and Matang, and I go for Crunch to take down Quagsire right away. That way it doesn't lower my speed. And unfortunately, Matang gets a lucky attack boost from Metal Claw. He sends out the Scizor, and unfortunately I don't really have anything to deal effective damage against it. I don't even do half with Crunch, and those Silver Winds do a lot of damage. Go for another Protect. Luckily, Scizor only has 5 Silver Winds, so if I'm able to just stall them out, I should be able to get past him just fine. And I get a lucky crit on Dig, okay? That's very nice. Then he sends out his first Shadow Pokemon, Shadow Solrock, and Matang gets another lucky attack boost. I get a crit taking Solrock down in a single hit, though I'm not sure if that was actually necessary. Go for another Protect, and Cast Form really shouldn't be a threat either. I decide to go for Dig to take down the Matang at this point, though, because of those 2 attack raises. And then he sends out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Starmie. Now, as long as I outspeed, I'm pretty sure I'm completely safe here. Unfortunately, I don't. It takes me down to 7 HP. Crunch is able to take it down in a single hit, but Cast Form finishes me off. So with that, I decide to do just a little bit of training. It's clear that Scizor was a bit of a fluke being taken down so quickly, and with these 4 extra levels, I should be able to take it down to half health. So I go for Dig, and it does just that, so it should be an easy 2-shot. Matang gets a lucky crit, taking me down to half health. I go for Protect to heal up a bit, and then I go for Dig to take down the Scizor. Now, like in the Gorgon fight, going for Dig does give me an extra heal from the leftovers, which is really nice for healing off that damage that I took. And then out comes the Solrock, which is definitely a one-shot with Crunch, and then he sends out Cast Form. Now, this time Matang hasn't built up a lot of attack boosts, so I can take down Cast Form this time because it's definitely the bigger threat of the two, with Thunderbolt and Flamethrower, and then he sends out Starmie. Now, unfortunately, there's no way that I'm outrunning the Starmie, so I am going to heal up as much as I can, and then go for Crunch. Luckily it is a one-shot, so I just need to survive 1 attack. Starmie goes down, and Metal Claw doesn't do that much damage, so I'm able to go for Dig and finish off the Matang. So with that, we beat Snaddle on the 3rd attempt. Now moving on to Ardos. He leads with an Alakazam and a Shadow Swallow, and unfortunately I'm slower than both of his Pokemon, which I was hoping to outspeed at least one of them. Body Slam is able to take down Alakazam in a single hit, then out comes the Kingdra, and I go for Protect to stall out the Shadow Sky a bit. And seeing as this is the first attempt, it's always good to see just how much damage I'm doing to the bigger threats. And Kingdra is unfortunately not a one-shot, but a little bit of chip damage is enough to finish it off. So before I decide to go ahead and do some training, I decide to go ahead and check to see what if I take down Swallow first instead of the Alakazam. Because Swallow, with the extra boost from the Fruity Pebbles, is doing a lot of damage, whereas Alakazam is doing a little bit. It's not too bad with Ice Punch. So maybe this is the way forward. So I decide to go for Crunch into Kingdra. Ice Punch, yeah, it's only doing about a 5th. And unfortunately, Kingdra hits a Hydro Pump, but it gets taken down by the Fruity Pebbles, and then he sends out Heracross, which is probably his strongest Pokemon so far, because not only does it do a lot of damage with moves like Mega Horn and Brick Break, but it's also part fighting, so I can't take it down in any quick fashion, unfortunately. So I will have to use Body Slam, but that's definitely not a one-shot. Alakazam goes down to Dig, and then he sends out Electabuzz, his second Shadow Pokemon, but Brick Break finishes me off. Now, seeing as I was already at level 89, I decided to go ahead and do the extra bit of training and use my rare candies to get up to level 100 before going in for more attempts. So with that, let's go ahead and see how well it does now. Unfortunately, still slower than these two, which is extremely unfortunate because I was really hoping I would outspeed at least the Alakazam. Out comes the Kingdra. I go for Protect once again just to stall at the Shadow Sky. But the Kingdra should definitely be a one-shot now with Crunch. And the chip damage certainly isn't necessary anymore, I don't think. And then he sends out Heracross once again. Now, hopefully, Heracross with a little bit of chip damage should be a one-shot with Body Slam. Luckily, it is just going for Rock Tomb on the first turn, so there is a chance that I will be able to get past it with it missing. But Body Slam does finish it off, which is very nice. Then out comes Electabuzz. I know for a fact that should be a one-shot with Dig. Unfortunately, it also has the static ability, so there is always that chance that it paralyzes me. But it decides to go for Shadow Half, which is really quite nice. I decide to take down the Alakazam on this turn, which in hindsight might not have been the best idea because now the Electabuzz is going to go for Shadow Mist, lower my evasiveness, so Shadow Snorlax will always hit its Shadow Ends. Body Slam does well over half to it, and unfortunately Shadow End gets a crit and finishes me off. So the thing is that this obviously could work, but there is just one small issue. I keep getting frozen, like back to back to back. So I decided to go ahead and change it up some. I'm going to take down the Alakazam this time and maybe see if the Swellow route is better. And it's actually going for Shadow Half, which means that as long as it continues to do that over and over again, the Swellow route is much better. So with that in mind, I go for Protect on the first turn, then I take down Alakazam on the second, and then out comes the Kingdra once again. And then I go for Protect while it uses Shadow Half again. And I know for a fact Kingdra was a one-shot before, so it's definitely a guaranteed one-shot now. Now the thing is that while it is a very nice strategy to have it use Shadow Half, the problem is that Swellow is very random. Sometimes it doesn't always go for Shadow Half, sometimes it likes to set up Shadow Sky. So it's not always consistent, but it's definitely a better way to get through this fight, rather than the 10% freeze chance all the time. Now, I do make a huge mistake here. I should have taken down either Swellow or Electabuzz that turn and taken the Shadow Half. That way Snorlax would have gotten hit by the Shadow Half, and it would have been a one-shot with Body Slam. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Shadow End hits, it's not a one-shot, but I can't survive another Shadow Storm from Electabuzz, so I decide to take it down, but unfortunately Snorlax hits the 60% accurate Shadow End and finishes me off. So I go back into the battle again, and Swellow has decided to start using Shadow Sky again, inexplicably. Like over and over and over again, which is really annoying. Until eventually it comes back around to using Shadow Half. Now this did add up quite a few losses that were basically restarts as soon as I saw that it wasn't Shadow Half, but eventually it comes back around to using it, and of course now with the correct strategy in mind, I take down all the Pokemon leading up to Electabuzz, and unfortunately on this attempt, Swellow did decide to go for Shadow Sky, which is a little bit troubling, but I take down the Heracross, and then he sends out Electabuzz once again. I decide to take down the Swellow, that way I'm not risking the static. So Swellow goes down, Snorlax comes out, gets hit by Shadow Half. I know for a fact I can take it down from half health, and so I take down the Snorlax, and then all that's left is the Electabuzz, which is left charging. I outspeed and take it down. So that took 16 attempts, but now moving on to Gorgon. He leads with a Slowking and an Ursaring. I go for Crunch to take down the Slowking immediately, then out comes Aggron. I go for Crunch into the Ursaring to take it down immediately. And then out comes Walrein. Walrein might be able to survive a single Crunch. It does on just a little bit of HP, goes for Earthquake, doesn't really do that much damage, so I decide to protect this turn just to heal up that damage. Now the thing is that once again I am playing it a bit safe, but the thing is that Aggron still has Iron Tail, so there's a chance that it lowers my defense, which would definitely make everything go downhill very quickly. Poliwrath unfortunately isn't a one-shot with Body Slam, but I do get a Paralysis, which unfortunately doesn't work to stop the Shadow Sky, so I take it down the following turn, and then he sends out Mr. Mime. Now, Mr. Mime really isn't a threat whatsoever, but if for some reason it were able to get off an attack, it would probably do quite a lot. I go for Protect, just to stall out the Shadow Sky, just in case Aggron turns out to be a bigger threat than I thought. Go for Crunch to take down the Mr. Mime, and then all that's left is Aggron, which luckily no defense drop there. go for another protect, and then the Shadow Sky finally fades away, so I go for dig to take it down in a single hit. So this is the first fight in the entire run I have won on the first attempt. So now moving on to Eldes, he leads with a Shadow Manectric and Ninjask, and this is the battle that ended my first Poochyena video. Now the thing is that I'm not actually using the hidden power here, so what's different? Well, it's the fact that I had a lot of time, and I did not care how many attempts this battle took, because my internet was down, so basically I had all the time in the world to get this done. With that being said, there are a lot of hoops to jump through. First off, I can't get hit by Shadow End by the Shadow Manectric, and second, I have to hit it with a physical move without getting paralyzed, so it's a 60% chance followed by a 30% chance, which right away makes this kind of difficult right off the bat. On top of that, the Ninjask always has a 10% chance for an Omni boost, raising all of its stats, and if its Silver Winds start doing more damage, it's basically over. So with that being said, I then get to an attempt where I get to Salamence, and it goes for Shadow Rush, dealing a ton of damage to me. Body Slam is only doing about a third. But the reason I use it is hoping for a paralysis, because Crunch actually does finish it off from that HP. Now the thing is that I do need a lucky second protect after using a protect. That way I can use up Ninjask's last Silver Wind, so it starts using protect itself. So that's a 50% chance on top of everything. And then out comes the Flygon. Now if the Salamence went down from over half health, the Flygon goes down from full health. Then out comes Marowak, which I don't think is going to be that much of a threat, but if it does somehow survive a crunch, it is going to take me down. Luckily it doesn't. And then he sends out his final Pokemon, which is Lapras. And I go for crunch into it. It's definitely not a one-shot, though luckily it does just go for Shadow Sky on the first turn. So while it could have been a threat, I can just take it down on the following turn, and then all that's left is the Ninjask, which definitely goes down in a single hit. A lot of the issues of this fight start at the very beginning, and unfortunately it just comes down to a lot of luck, but once you get past that, not too bad. Now moving on to the last battle of the game against Greevil, and I'm going to teach Hidden Power over Dig, because Dig just isn't all that useful here, and I go into the battle against Shadowlugia. And Shadow Storm does quite a bit of damage, go for Crunch, not quite a one-shot, go for Body Slam to finish it off, and that leaves me with 59 HP for the final battle. Now, of course, going into this, he has a Moltres and a Rhydon, and the first thing I need to check is Hidden Power Rock actually strong enough to take down Moltres? And it is. It could be a range, but I'm not sure just yet. Then out comes Executor, but I don't actually see what I can do to it. Go into the battle once again, and Hidden Power takes it down a second time in a row, so I'm fairly confident it shouldn't be a range. With that being said, Rhydon hits and does half of my health and damage, so I decide to protect. And then I take down the Rhydon from half, so I'm not sure if it is going to be a one-shot with Crunch yet. And then out comes Tauros. Now Tauros could actually end my entire plan, because while it is a one-shot, it does hit me with Intimidate, so unfortunately Hidden Power Rock's not going to be doing as much damage, but we'll just have to wait and see. Articuno is unfortunately faster than me, which isn't great, but now for the moment that matters, and it is not a one-shot anymore. So at this point I have two options. Either I continue running leftovers for the survivability, or I swap over to using the White Herb item just to counteract the Intimidate from Tauros. So with that being said, let's go ahead and give it a try. So I go for Hidden Power, which takes down Moltres just as before. Now I will actually be able to see if Crunch does take down Rhydon in a single hit, which it does. And then out comes the Tauros once again. It uses Intimidate, White Herb heals it, and then I go for Crunch to not take it down. And this is the most unfortunate thing about this battle, is the fact that Tauros is actually a range. And it's not even like a real nice one. It really feels like 30% of the time I actually take it down, which is just very unfortunate. But at least on a future attempt, I'm able to actually get to Articuno to see, does Hidden Power actually take it down in a single hit? And it absolutely does. However, with that being said, Zapdos is not a one-shot, and unfortunately it also outspeeds. So continuing with the herb method, unfortunately it does come down to a lot of luck. First off, Rhydon cannot hit, and it is a 60% chance that it does, so many attempts just die on turn 1. Following that, luckily Executor does just decide to go for Shadow Hold, so I do get at least one turn of freedom, so I'm able to take down Tauros, which like I said before, isn't a guaranteed one-shot. Then out comes Articuno, which is a one-shot. It of course outspeeds, always has that chance to freeze, though luckily on this one I thaw immediately. And then comes out Zapdos, really the biggest threat here, and that's because it's doing about 75 damage according to my notes, and Crunch and Hidden Power both don't take it down in a single hit. So I need to land a 30% paralysis on Zapdos, have it be paralyzed, and then have Executor miss for another turn, or two would be preferable. So I decide to go for Body Slam. Of course, it outspeeds and does quite a bit of damage to me. Unfortunately, no paralysis, and I go down. Now, it clearly is doable, but after 147 attempts of White Urban leftovers not really giving me any results, and just death after bad start after death over and over and over again, eventually I decided to go ahead and use Double Team. If I'm already needing extreme luck to win, Double Team really only helps, and even though I do kind of hate using it, I see it as Poochyena's only real option to get past this without putting another several hundred attempts in. So with that being said, I go into the battle once again, now 39 attempts later, on battle number 185, where finally all the luck comes together and I'm able to beat him. Now, of course, Double Team helps quite a lot, but the thing is that I just really needed incredible luck all throughout. It still took another 39 attempts to actually get this to work, which is honestly surprising. Now, I do think in hindsight, a lot of these issues could have been addressed earlier on had I just continued rolling for a Poochyena with higher Hidden Power Rock. But strangely enough, this Poochyena's IVs are actually a perfect 31 in special attack. So I think had I gone a different Poochyena, there's a good chance that a lot of the one-shots I had throughout the game with Crunch probably wouldn't have happened. With that being said, however, the whole point of Hidden Power Rock was to make it so I could one-shot the legendary birds, and while there's still probably no way I could have taken down Zapdos in a single hit, Articuno going down right away would have saved a lot of hassle, and I could have still been running the leftovers strat. Now, of course, with Double Team, I can actually run leftovers, and it's actually quite effective. As you can see, I'm surviving attacks fairly well, and it's all left to Zapdos, who, at this point, misses, I get a crunch, and I finally finish it off. So, after a very, very long battle, I defeat Greevil. You know what? Actually, hold on. Let me check something here. So, I have this Poochyena here. It's the same Poochyena from before, but I went ahead and changed its IVs around. It has a bit less in a few things and a bit higher in others, but in the end it has 67 base power rock. And I just want to see how effective this one would have been had I gotten it. So I go for... Did I just accidentally double protect? Oops. Anyway, I go for Hidden Power, and it is taking Articuno down in a single hit with the leftovers. So yeah, had I just rolled a better Poochyena with higher Hidden Power Rock, I'm sure this battle would have been much, much easier. Unfortunately, even in this attempt where I'm showing off how much better it is, I still end up losing, so obviously it wasn't a cakewalk anyway. But anyway, with that being said, how well did our Poochyena do? Well, it beat the game at a time of 27 hours, 31 minutes, and 54 seconds at level 100, with 58 losses to random trainers, and 54 to bosses before Greevil, which would have been 112 losses, which is already pretty bad, but after Greevil and his 185 losses, it goes all the way up to 297 losses. Oh, that was nearly 300 losses throughout the game. So, with that being said, it's very clear that Poochyena, despite being a little better than before just because it could finish the game, is still very much in dead last. And that's with a Poochyena that I went out of my way for Hidden Power Rock, and even if it had a higher base power Hidden Power, I'm sure that it still would have been quite a struggle to get past Greevil, and it still would have ended up in dead last. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the longest and most amount of faints I've ever had in a run before. So, despite its best efforts, it still finds itself down at the bottom of the E tier, being the worst Pokemon in the game twice in a row. Now, I do think that there were a few positives to talk about with Poochyena. Obviously, it's a dark type, and psychic types can't hit it. and so the stronger psychic types in the game, it does very well against. Unfortunately, once they start getting further along the line and they start having more diverse move pools, that doesn't really help anymore. And I guess it's solid throughout some parts of the game. I mean, it takes down most random trainers okay, but 58 losses against them doesn't really paint a very good picture. I guess it having its purified moveset is also kind of nice, having Poison Fang and Dig, though it's not as helpful as I would have hoped. And the negatives are really that its stats are just terrible, and its move pool outside of those little bit of coverage options are really just normal and dark. It has a few setup moves like Howl, and it's got some status inflicting moves like Swagger, but it's a little hard to use in doubles because you're always taking damage all the time, and unfortunately taking damage and not dealing damage really isn't a good combination. Some bulkier Pokemon are able to do it, and some really fast frail Pokemon are able to do it, but honestly, Poochyena is neither of those. So while it is still the very bottom of E tier, at least it's gone up a single step. So it is at least doable. With that being said, of course, if you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, sorry for the long wait on this one, but bye!